The image displayed on your screen right now, for those that are watching, is a statue that has been pulled off of its pedestal, toppled, pulled to the ground. This individual is none other than Thomas Jefferson, the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. You know what? Trump called it. Several years ago, Trump was talking about Confederate statues being pulled down, and he said, what's next? Jefferson? Washington? And he was right. They've now begun to pull down statues of Thomas Jefferson. Why? Well, because he was a slave owner, of course. The far left thinks this a revolution or uprising. Several high-profile leftist personalities on social media have called it as such. In reality, I think we're actually, potentially, looking at Donald Trump's re-election campaign. I can only imagine, after the banning of books, the banning of movies, the banning of art, and the destruction of statues of the founding fathers, notably one of the most prominent, Thomas Jefferson, I can only imagine after seeing this, regular Americans would outright reject what the left represents. We are seeing right now across this country thousands of people marching through the streets, demanding justice, shouting Black Lives Matter. At the same time, in New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio is welding the gates shut to a park in a Jewish community. Over the past several months, while he has praised and defended the protesters, he's overtly targeted the Jewish community. I have to wonder, why would anyone think this would bode well for the left or the Democrats? While Trump's approval rating appears to be in the gutter, I have questions about the methodology of these polls. Is it possible the polls are being misrepresented, or they're polling the wrong groups, or disproportionately polling the wrong people to make it look like people don't like Trump? Perhaps it is. As of right now, Donald Trump has just raised a record amount of money, I believe $14 million. We'll pull it up. And nearly 1 million people have RSVP'd for his rally in Tulsa. So why should I believe the news? When they show me images of Thomas Jefferson being ripped from his pedestal, yeah, I gotta say it freaks me out. When they tell me they're banning Gone with the Wind, the highest grossing film in American history of all time, actually, adjusted for inflation. When they begin banning books from Amazon, which some people have likened to digital book burnings, you have to try and convince me all of that doesn't freak out regular people. I'm sorry. I think it does. And I think that's why Trump is raising insane amounts of money. And I think that's why, in my personal life, people I have known to be Democrats their whole lives have flipped. They've walked away. And they're now arguing in favor of Republicans. Only 5 or 6 months ago, these same people were telling me the Republicans were awful, but something changed. Perhaps it was all of the governors saying protests are okay for us, but don't you dare open your business. Perhaps it was the nationwide rioting that has resulted in an occupation in Seattle. They've never stopped it. It's still going on. Perhaps it was the burning down of a Wendy's. It just won't stop. And guess what? The data proves it. When riots break out, the American people demand law and order, and they vote Republican. So dare I say, perhaps on the surface, this looks like a far left revolution, and I'll show you what's going on with this far left revolution, notably in the CHAZ, or now the CHOP. I'm sorry, they changed the name of the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone to the Capitol Hill Occupied Protest. This is a 6-block radius where far left extremists and activists and individuals have occupied the space and are no longer allowing police in. I'll show you what they're really doing. And then I'll show you what I think this really is. The accidental re-election campaign for Donald Trump. This all, in my opinion, is going to help him to an absurd degree. There's the image of Thomas Jefferson. I got to be honest, man. I got to stop for a second. This is I can't believe it. I can't believe these people pulled down Thomas Jefferson. Listen, he is the founding father. He is the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. They are not just attacking racist institutions. They are literally attacking the very heart and soul of this country. And that is shocking to any regular American person. We can disagree about wars and about police brutality, but I think most people in this country like their own country. They stand for the flag. Well, all of that is being torn apart. And I assure you, this probably scares a lot of regular Americans. I am seeing what I can only describe as activation across the board in a lot of different ways. We'll get to this, but let's get started with the story about Thomas Jefferson. Before we do, however, head over to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work. There's many ways you can give. There's even a P.O. box where you can send things if you'd like to send me things. But the best way you can help is actually to share this video. The mainstream media, I believe, is they're frequently covering a lot of these stories, but you get a contradictory message. I try to take a more overview approach to a lot of these stories to get a better understanding of what's really going on. If you think I do a better job than these massive multi-billion-dollar corporations, sharing helps me succeed, I guess, because they've got massive marketing budgets. But if you just want to watch, then just hit the like button, subscribe, and let's get to the news. Thomas Jefferson statue toppled in Portland, Oregon, from CBS. A statue of Thomas Jefferson outside a high school named for him in North Portland was toppled Sunday after a night of protests. It was the latest to be vandalized or pulled over in the U.S. and other nations during the racial justice protests that have followed the death of George Floyd at Minneapolis police hands 3 weeks ago. Statues of leading Confederate figures, as well as slave owners and traders, have been targeted by demonstrators and in some cases removed by state and local governments. The Jefferson statue was the third to be taken down this weekend in Oregon alone. 2 at the University of Oregon, the Pioneer Man and the Pioneer Mother, were taken down Saturday evening. Earlier Sunday evening, the steps of Jefferson High School were the site of a Black Lives Matter rally led by Rose City Justice. Organizers spoke in front of the Jefferson statue, its base spray painted with the phrase slave owner. Sometime after the march moved on to a local park, the statue was toppled. It wasn't clear who did it or whether they were involved with the Black Lives Matter demonstrations 3 hours before. There's actually a video of it. Yes, they were. There's a video of people throwing the ropes around it and pulling it down. Now, here we have this. This story from CNN back in August 15th, 2017, when Trump said, "So this week, it's Robert E. Lee. I noticed that Stonewall Jackson is coming down. I wonder, is it George Washington next week? And is it Thomas Jefferson the week after? You know, you really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?" Now, at first, we as regular Americans entertained the reason why these people wanted to tear down Confederate statues. For one, a lot of these statues weren't put up during the Civil War. They're put up way after the Civil War. And many people said, why should we lionize, why should we prop up or idolize in any way Confederate soldiers? So because of this, there actually was a movement to remove many of these statues. Unfortunately, it devolved into angry mobs pulling down statues randomly while the police stood by and watched. Most people disagreed with the statues coming down. In one instance recently, a man may have lost his life. I believe he's still in the hospital, major skull injury when the statue fell onto his head. Most people do not want the statues to come down. Even many of them who are in favor of it have called for them to be put into museums. But this is where we talk about the rapid escalation of what many of the far leftists call their uprising or revolution. It wasn't just about the Confederacy. It's about hatred for this country, period. Thomas Jefferson, this should be the biggest red flag to anybody who thinks this is about racism. Yes, they'll claim that Thomas Jefferson, it's really about racism, but no, I'm sorry. The man who created the Declaration of Independence and who laid the groundwork, along with many other founding fathers, that eventually created one of the most free and equal countries on the planet, is not the same as a Confederate leader. But they will say it is, and they won't stop until everything is pulled down. They are quite literally trying to destroy and erase history. They'll argue they're not, but it doesn't matter what they think their intention is. They are mindless mobs running around with ropes, just toppling statues. I don't think that we can stand for this. I mean, Thomas Jefferson is an American hero. He is not a Confederate soldier that was disgraced or looked down upon by at least half the country. Thomas Jefferson was praised by basically everybody for a long time. He's the father of this nation. Well, I bring you now to the left's revolution. Here at the CHAZ or the CHOP or whatever it is they call it. In Seattle, if you're not familiar, they've occupied now a 6-block radius. It's actually spanning, I think, around like 25 because of the way it's shaped, but 6 square blocks. A decently large space where they're not allowing police to enter. In this tweet, we see a video where a man says, quote, "Does anybody know what happened to the people who did not get on board with the French Revolution? Chopped." The crowd answered. That's right. Off with their head. They are literally saying their intentions. Now, for the longest time, I've heard from a lot of people saying, they're just, it's LARPing. They'll never actually do it. Yeah, just you wait and see. They've burned down and destroyed tons of buildings. These extremists are real. And right now they're escalating their tactics. For the longest time, they've been mocked and ridiculed for being rather ineffective. But you did have a man associated with the Puget Sound John Brown Gun Club, which is active in this zone, firebombed an ICE facility and tried to kill law enforcement. And that wasn't even that long ago. So yes, they may be very pathetic, but their intentions are there and they are telling you. Now, does that mean they'll succeed? No, but it definitely means you should take it seriously because these are not people who are playing games with you. They mean it when they say it. Let's see what else is going down in the CHAZ. CHAZ, the self-appointed police of the zone, armed, chasing down someone accused of being a thief and then searching them. Why? This is to show you that in this area, there is no codified rule of law. If you're deemed a thief, you'll be hunted down, surrounded at gunpoint while they frisk you and search you. Now, I know we can criticize police for very similar things, but at least when it comes to the legal system, you have some rights. Here, people have been threatened with weapons. Some people have been actually attacked and slammed to the ground for none other than having the wrong opinion. A preacher was trying to preach, legally allowed to, anywhere in this country, First Amendment. And so they pinned him to the ground. Several people grabbed him and they stripped him of his property. That's what's happening in their revolution. In this tweet, they say apparently the man Raz detained was accused of being the person who broke into the local business. He allegedly returned where local business owners identified him. I don't know what they expected to find. Some emotional comments from another man involved in the local business. The business is apparently within the no-cop zone. Quote, I can't even get the police to show up. I can't get the fire department to show up. And this kind of mob stuff, that doesn't work. This business owner, his business is in this occupied leftist revolution. I'm being somewhat facetious when I say that. And there was a fire that broke out and they had to put it out because nobody will show up for them. This is what you can expect from the left's revolution. However, the real reason I'm showing you all this is not to pretend like this is the CHAZ or the CHOP, whatever they call it, is some kind of actual revolution. I'm showing you this because the American people are going to see what's happening and it's going to freak them out. Because I don't think, in fact, these people have the ability to actually stage any kind of revolution. But this brings me to one of the more outlandish, craziest videos I've seen. Elijah Schaefer. He films videos out in the streets. He has a channel, I believe it's Slightly Offensive, talking to an Uber driver. And it appears he may be recording this, without the driver's knowledge. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not going to make assumptions. But the driver explains how when he was waiting near the CHAZ, two people drew guns on him and pointed guns at his head and just told him to leave. This kind of thing. I kid you not. This man, probably a leftist, probably a liberal, probably not anymore. These business owners are being told by the local government they will do nothing for you. The mayor is saying it's fine, it's a festival, while people get guns pointed at their heads. How do you think regular Americans are going to respond to this? How do you think the majority of suburbanites are going to respond to this? Let me explain something to you about 2018. Suburban districts that voted for Donald Trump in 2016 flipped 2 years later and voted in Democrats, shocking many people. The Democrats need to maintain these districts to keep the House. Do you think suburbanites are going to be like, Joe Biden will keep us safe from this? Or do you think they're going to flip and say, please, Trump, send in the military? 58% of registered voters agreed, according to the Morning Consult. The military should be sent in to stop the rioting. But the rioting and the protests have not stopped. Now, let's talk about the inner workings of the CHAZ. Here is a post that talks from the CHAZ subreddit. Now, again, I am not showing you this to make you think that the CHAZ is legitimate. I'm showing it to you because people are going to spread this around and they're going to be freaked out by it. This is what apparently Democrats are defending right now. Not all of them, just the governor and the mayor and some other high-profile politicians. But in this post, it's a parody of itself. They're talking about setting up a non-biased governing body, an advisory council for how decisions are made. They talk about how it's got to have one black woman, one black man, and one white woman. But then someone complains it's racist. So then they got to add micro Asian seats of 12 seats of different Asian ethnicities. And the funny thing is, ultimately, they deleted the post. And someone said, I hope this is a troll, but please take this seriously. I don't know how to convince you, but please take this seriously because I think this is a massive mistake. This post basically says you can't do this. You can't segregate people in this way. But I think the funnier response comes before they deleted it. It's gotten to the point where I literally can't tell who's serious and who's a troll anymore. This is the best thing of 2020 so far. I believe it was serious. Now they're trying to argue that this man was in fact a troll trying to manipulate the group. No, you have to understand. People can't tell the difference as to what's real and what's parody anymore. So that means the craziest things being thrown up by the left are absolutely going to help Donald Trump because people are like, I'm going to assume it's real. Not all of it, but I see no reason why people should assume it's not real. Now, here's one of the crazier moments that took place in the CHAZ. A film crew, they were accused of starting a fire simply because they were there filming. And people said, hey, why was this film crew here? Look at the title. Fire at the East Precinct, and a media crew just happens to be there. And someone yells, it started right when they showed up. And people were like, chill, stop. They're actually implying that these media people started the fire. Let me tell you a story, man. Try and keep it vague. But there is someone I know who is a diehard lefty their whole life. And after all the riots broke out, the first thing they did was they went and bought a gun. I kid you not. I also have close personal friends and family who are questioning their loyalties to the Democratic Party. I wonder if they're actually trying to help Donald Trump win. I mean that seriously. Now take a look at the polls for Donald Trump. Oof, not good, huh? Check this out. Trump's approval rating is way down from its high. It was only a couple months ago. Trump's approval rating hit its highest point ever. Now his disapproval is skyrocketing. His approval is dropping. I guess a reasonable person would look at this and say, wow, in the aggregate, mind you, Donald Trump is doing terribly. It must be. These people are truly rising up against him, and Donald Trump must be on track to lose in November. I mean, maybe. I don't buy it. You know why? Well, come on. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We all saw what happened in 2016. The polls were wrong. Now, they weren't necessarily wrong. They favored Hillary Clinton. They gave her like an 87% chance of winning. That still does mean Trump had a chance to win, and he did. It just means it was long shot odds, but the odds were there. Some argue the polls weren't wrong. They showed the margin and the voters voted. The important thing you need to consider, national polls, approval rating aren't necessarily the most important thing. The question is registered voters, and the question is swing states. Some people are concerned that with the mass exodus from cities following these mass riots, maybe the real strategy is to dilute the Electoral College so that you have all of these leftists now in red areas switch so that these red areas flip and vote for Biden. Maybe. But I also wonder how many people are now terrified and going to come out and vote for Trump for that reason. How many jurisdictions have seen leftists and liberals flee to their areas, stock up on food, complain, and it made them angry? Following the COVID outbreak in New York, several jurisdictions in the Northeast were complaining that New Yorkers were basically raiding their food shelves and fleeing to their cities, and they didn't like it. I find it really funny. I can imagine many of these suburbanites are not going to be too happy about what's happening. But I bring you now to the actual argument. Violence amid protests for racial justice could mean re-election for Donald Trump. This story from Penn Live. It's actually really simple. They say, Omar Wasow, Princeton Department of Politics assistant professor, has data to support that riots are helping. The data showing that peaceful protests actually help Democrats. His work shows upticks in votes for Republicans coming from white moderate Democrats in elections following violent protests. This is especially so in counties close to protest sites. Conversely, there are bumps for Democrats in counties near nonviolent protests. For example, he told The New Yorker last week, areas around cities that had 137 violent protests after the assassination of MLK in 1968 saw a 6 to 8% boost for GOP presidential candidate Richard Nixon. I know it's not 1968. Our politics are different. America's different. But Wasow also says violent protests are linked to a statistically significant decline in Democratic vote share in 1964 and 1972 elections. And he told The New Yorker, there is pretty strong evidence Trump's law and order stance hurt Democrats in 2016. Of the current election, Wasow says, the real danger for advocates of reform in Minneapolis trying to get better policing and for those trying to pursue racial justice nationally is that there are people who are turned off by Trump, but who have a strong taste for order. And so if they are more concerned about racial disorder than Trump is their racial order. The president is clearly aware of this. He's been pushing lots of law and order buttons, referring to using vicious dogs and ominous weapons, threatening to fill America's streets with America's army, calling others, especially governors, weak and jerks in the face of riots. I gotta say, I believe it. From Politico, we're thinking landslide. Beyond DC, GOP officials see Trump on glide path to re-election. I certainly think so. I think the media has been lying nonstop. I think many people have started to wake up to how awful the media really is. And I think people don't trust the polls because the polls were wrong in 2016. Why should they trust them now? There's some arguments that maybe the polls are right this time. They corrected them. They adapted their models so that they could be correct this time around. They learned from their mistakes. Moody's Analytics, for instance, said, we didn't take certain things into account, and now we do. So maybe they did update. Others argue that because of cancel culture, many people are scared to admit they will vote for Donald Trump because they'll lose their jobs. And yep, many of them probably would. So they'll turn to the secret ballot while publicly stating in every capacity that they don't like Trump. I got to admit, man, I've talked to a lot of people who have said that if you care about the money and you care about the country functioning and your kids going to college and, having a better life, at this point, you got to vote for Trump, even though they hate the guy. I've had many conversations about this. But whether or not you hate him, it doesn't really matter. 1 million tickets requested for President Trump's rally in Tulsa. It doesn't matter if you hate him because enough people love him. They want to see these rallies, man. Trust me, I have been to Trump rallies. These people are having a blast. It is to them. It's fun. What you got to understand, if you've never seen a Trump rally, Trump is an entertainer and he knows it. He's essentially doing some kind of Jon Stewart-like shtick. He really is. Okay, you can criticize him for all of the bad things he says, his attitude, his demeanor, the fact that he's a mean guy, right? That's what Trump said, but he works for you. Criticize him all day and night. But Trump gets up there and he makes jokes. He's self-deprecating. People laugh and they cheer and it makes them feel good. Right now, we're in this uncertainty. People are scared. Thomas Jefferson being pulled down? I got to imagine that's freaking some people out. I mean, come on. People who grew up on chocolate chip cookies and apple pie, seeing the preeminent founding father ripped from his base and toppled by far left extremists who think they're staging a revolution, and people are going to be like, please help us. But think about that feeling they get, that fear, that uncertainty, the violence in the streets, the week of rioting, the pandemic. And the Democrats are the one locking down. The Democrats are the ones in New York cheering for the protests while they weld shut a Jewish park. It's not Trump. Trump's calling to reopen, saying, get your jobs back. I want to help you. So why would they vote for anybody else? Now take that feeling they have and offer up Trump saying, I'm going to have a rally. And guess what? 1 million people, just about, want to be there. They want to feel good again. They want to feel like they're part of a community again. And people are feeling like they're not. Pride in America is going down. According to Gallup, U.S. national pride falls to record low from everyone. It's way down. Only 63% say that they're extremely or very proud. 42 would say they're extremely proud, but this is down, especially from around where it was in 2001, 2002. These people aren't feeling good, man. And I'll tell you what, people want to feel like they're part of something. They want to feel like someone's got their back. They want to feel like they're contributing to something bigger than themselves. And when they don't have that, they feel bad. So now what do you have? The Democrats are dejected and all over the place. Who knows what they're calling for? No one even knows what defund the police really means. Does it mean take a little money away? Does it mean divert the money? Does it mean disband the departments, abolish police outright, shut down the courts? These things have all been promoted by people on the left. It's meaningless, and you have no idea how to even be a part of what the left is. They eat their own so often, you have no idea what's going on. Take a look at what happened in Atlanta. They burned down a Wendy's. Why? What did Wendy's have to do with what happened to this man? No idea. So if you want to find a community, well, people say at least they can look at Trump and say, hey, if they cheer for this guy, they will feel good. You take all that uncertainty and fear. You add it to the fact that the Trump economy was amazing for several years. You send them to a rally where they can stand shoulder to shoulder, people smiling, shaking their hands, giving them hugs, while Trump makes them laugh and cheers for America. And I assure you, people are going to crave this. Not everybody. There's going to be a lot of people who don't want to vote for Trump. But we'll see how things play out in the popular vote. And I could be wrong about all of this. Absolutely. His approval rating is tanking. Maybe. I'm just wrong. I don't think I'm a prophet. I don't think I can see the future. I think I can just read stories that say Trump's birthday marks RNC Trump campaign's single best online fundraising day ever. They say the Trump campaign posted, they brought in $14 million across 3 entities on his birthday, smashing the previous record of $10 million October 2016. Are we on track for a repeat of 2016? Dare I say yes? Just take a look at the United Kingdom, where December 13th, they had an election, and it was one of the worst defeats the left in that country had ever seen in nearly 100 years. Certain areas that had not voted conservative for like 80, 90 years flipped from blue to red. Now, that could happen here, and I think with all the violence and destruction, you're going to see it, man. The polls can say whatever they want. I am not convinced. In 2016, I thought Trump was going to lose, and Hillary is going to win for sure, and she didn't. In 2018, I thought, this is it. Trump's got it. The Republicans are going to sweep, and I was wrong about that. So listen, I'm 50-50. I'm wrong on both counts on this one. So far be it from me to tell you what to expect. I was wrong in 2016. Many people were. I was wrong in 2018 about the midterms. Oh, yeah, definitely. And maybe I will be wrong this time. And you know what? Yeah, so be it. I'm just looking at the news as it is today. And you've got a couple different metrics where you can make your choice as to what you think is going to happen. Is the fundraising more important? Maybe not. Maybe the fundraising is coming from, a lot of people who are very fervent, but not enough of them to actually win an election. His approval rating is down. But if you have 35% of the country, as the left is arguing, in support of Trump, but very in support of Trump, and they all donate, well, then, yeah, Trump will bring in a ton of money, but he won't win a general election. There are a lot of people who have predicted Trump might actually lose. And you know what? Following these unpredictable events of the nationwide rioting and COVID, I think it's entirely possible. But I'll tell you what, the polls are hard to track. The reason I think it's significant when the polls show an all-time high is because the polls tend to skew negative for Trump. So if the polls were negative for Trump and he still got elected, it must mean something crazy when his polls shoot up really, really high. But the polls, I don't know if they're necessarily a good way to judge what's going to happen because they were wrong before. We can look at fundraising, and we can look at ticket RSVPs, and we can look at the data. The rioting helps Republicans. Why would suburbanites see the rioting and think Joe Biden is the right choice? No. I think what's going to happen is a bunch of these suburbanites are going to say, Donald Trump, he's the only one. He is. But it's not just Trump. It's about what the left is representing today. Take a look at these stories. ESPN hits all-time 41-year ratings low as woke center on steroids takes over. Yep. Woke politics. People don't like it. How about this story? Amazon is banning books. Elon Musk is calling it out. Here you go. Magic the Gathering cards, a trading card game about goblins, vampires, and wizards, is banning cards for being racist. And how about this? Gone with the Wind removed from HBO Max. They say they'll bring it back with some educational disclaimer of some sort. Gone with the Wind, the highest grossing film of all time adjusted for inflation. And will anyone ever beat it? I really doubt it. American icons, art, and history being destroyed, purged, insulted. I can only imagine, man. When they came out and said, baby, it's cold outside, had to go. A lot of people were like, whoa, but I grew up listening to that. How many 40, 50-year-old suburbanite Americans remember waking up on Christmas morning to a warm chocolate chip cookie and a slice of apple pie or something, hearing this song sung by their parents as they laughed and they opened presents? Now, that's not a representation of all of America. It's the suburbs. It's the places where Trump needs to win. How many of these people remember seeing Gone with the Wind, knowing what it was, or respecting Thomas Jefferson, even passively, like, oh yeah, founder of this country? How many people really do believe in America for all its faults and respect and know Thomas Jefferson was not a Confederate? And how many of these people are now scared that their very identity as Americans is being shredded by lunatics in the street smashing windows and seizing territory in Seattle? How many of those people are going to beg Trump to make America great again? I'd be willing to bet it's a lot. But I guess, as per usual, we can only just wait and see. I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up at 6 p.m. at youtube.com/TimCastNews. It is a different YouTube channel, and I will see you all then.